All right, good morning, everybody. Mike Courtney here, Mass Mutual, Eastern Pennsylvania, on a beautiful Wednesday morning, beginning of March. I'm joined by Steve Parisi, President and CEO of IBC Global. Steve, almost springtime. We were just talking about it. Feeling good. How's everything going this week?
Fantastic, my friend. Mile a minute as always, but it is a really nice morning today, which is great because this winter's been cold. But
Yeah,
good. Thanks. How about you?
good. Winter
Good.
was cold, but it felt short for some reason. I
Yeah.
don't usually say that this time of year. I'm usually kind of, amped to get outside, which I am, but
Yeah.
not the same drudgery of months that it felt like in past years.
Right on. Right on.
Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about some of the brokers and advisors that we deal with. For those of you who don't know, Steve runs a really successful and impressive practice where they work with clients on maximizing solutions involving cash value life insurance in a variety of aspects. But Steve also works with a lot of independent brokers who, sign up to be a part of his platform in some way. There's a couple of different ways that you can get involved with Steve and his team and benefit from the platform that they've built. And, similarly, I deal with independent brokers and financial advisors day in and day out. I mean, those are my clients. That's who I'm looking to attract to write Mass Mutual business. So, over the years, Steve, what have you seen that is really the sign of someone who is
Yeah.
very successful and maybe a good fit for this type of business or to feed into what we do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And to narrow it down, if you're going to take agent A versus agent B, like what's the difference or how to thrive in the business is the key because you've got superstars, people that do very, very well and are the leaders in the space versus those that are decent and then most that don't make it. Speaking statistically, right, about 92% of people in the insurance space, life insurance, fail out, financial services, it's difficult. So, if I were to summarize it or just say one thing, the person that does very, very well and typically becomes a leader in the space will be the person that has an absolute laser focus on their customers, the clients they are working with. They're going to listen to them and do everything for the customer, not for the insurance carrier, the management that they work for, but it's the customer, the customer, the customer. That is the difference where will see someone bend over backward for the client instead of saying, well, this is the way I was taught to do things, so it's the only way you can do it, Mr. Client. And the client says, I'm not working with you, I'm going to go work with someone else. And then they fail out. But that laser focus on the consumer, there's many things, but that's what I would point to where I see someone who does very, very well, even people who, and this is all businesses that have done phenomenal in business, right? But just, 7, 8 figure net worths, 9 figure net worths, it goes beyond the money. Like they will still work with anyone and bend over backwards to make sure that consumer is satisfied with the product or strategy they're putting in force. Like that would be the difference in my opinion, just from observation. And I try to stay true to that even when I'm feeling tired.
Yeah. What about, I always feel like there's a real fine line where, like I'm never impressed by like the talking head mentality. If I'm going to work with someone in this kind of capacity who's going to be an advisor, I want to know that they know their stuff. And I want to know that they know the product inside and out and the process inside and out. But as an advisor, to be so knowledgeable, yet also not get completely lost in all the minutia I think is really challenging. I had a friend at one point who was contemplating a career change. He was an electrical engineer. I would say, kind of, stereotype engineer, super analytical, things or issues or problems that would take me 2 or 3 minutes to resolve, he would probably resolve much better and much more complete, but it would take him 3 hours. You know, he was the type of person who, like, I would ask him to help me move a piece of furniture at my house. And when he showed up, I was like, why did I ask him? Because,
Yeah.
you know, I would have just kind of gotten it out the door. And now we're like taking an hour to take the door off the hinges. And, you know, so he was contemplating a move as a financial advisor. And in order to do that, we went through a case on him so he could see the process. And before the policy was issued, in one of my best friends, in a friendly and nice way, I told him that I wasn't interested in working with him anymore as his advisor. And I really didn't think that he should become, I was like, you're never going to close any business because you're constantly questioning everything.
Okay.
You know, real thirsty for knowledge, had to understand the ins and outs of every little thing, which you and your team are like that sometimes too. But how do you not get lost in, you know, is this really important? Is this material? You know, I just spent 3 hours working on this. This isn't producing any revenue. Is it important to my business? Like, how do you find that line?
Yeah, that is a fantastic question where you've got product and industry knowledge, product and industry experience, a very, very smart guy, your friend sounds like.
Yeah.
But with an engineer mindset, he will dig into it all day long. And from a sales perspective or business driving revenue perspective, it's like you're going to sit here and just do nothing but analyze things all day, and you're going to fail.
You have to monetize your time, I think. You know, I mean, you have to be able to say at the end of the day, you know, I work, you know, I was on for 15 hours today and I generated X amount of revenue. And if you don't think of it that way, then you're not really running a business.
So so here's how I would approach that, because that's been a weakness of mine where I really like to dig into things and understand it. But then when you communicate that to potential customers, you have to do things properly. I can't go spill out 15 hours of here's how PUA fees work and such. Like, it, who cares? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, I enjoy it. Other brokers and agents may enjoy it. Some engineers we work with really enjoy it. But for the most part, the average consumer is not going to care. So if you're the type that likes to really dig into the product and you want to know what it is that you're selling so you feel confident about it, that's often what that type of individual will say. I have to understand.
And I respect that and totally understand and oftentimes feel the same way.
Yeah. And I'm with you. So what should not be done, because this happens a lot in the industry, is like, well, who cares? Don't even look at it. Just sell it. Because then an engineer is going to say, no, you just want me to sell it. Like, I need to understand it so I know what I'm doing is truly right for the client. So taking in that knowledge, the first thing you can do if you want to do everything on your own is practice your communication skills. You now know everything. How do you communicate it in a way that the average prospect or potential customer you speak with is going to actually get it? So you've got 20 hours worth of information in your mind that you want to spill out in someone. How do you condense that where you keep the integrity of the information you're providing, the accuracy, everything exactly where it needs to be, 5 stars, but how do you do it in 2 minutes? How do you do it in 60 seconds? Or how do you do it in a half an hour if it's during a Zoom call, whatever it might be? And the problem that I see in this case is people know all this information and they do not rehearse, they don't role play, they don't practice how to actually communicate that, and people don't get it. We get it because we live it every day, but you can't expect a consumer to pick something up after one session that took you years to understand.
Or, you know what else, Steve, I think is real important that you guys have done that actually I hadn't thought of this before, but I'm surprised I don't see this more often. A lot of your videos that are very specific to, you know, some kind of particular functionality within whole life or how certain riders work, where you put together a minute or a 2 minute long video that explains all that, but then you're done. That
Yeah.
if that comes, I mean, you may have to tweak that down the road, or you may have to add to that. But if someone is consistently questioning, fees involved in PUA payments with different carriers, and you can summarize all of that in a 2-minute video, and then that's a lot of time that you don't have to spend going forward. So the fact, like, documenting a lot of that, I think, is important.
Video assets, being able to take that information that we get from the
Video
insurance.
assets, I like that.
Yeah. So an example on that. So like PUA fees, that comes up all the time with a lot of people we work because it's confusing, right? How come all of my PUA payments not showing up? It doesn't make sense on the illustration. So we broke it down. I broke it down, just taking time, going through it if we take Mass Mutual, their old legacy products, then their new products, different products have different PUA fees, went through the guaranteed values, the non-guaranteed values. And when you look at the actual PDFs that are produced, it's like an encyclopedia when I'm done with all of the runs, and then I'll do the same thing for Guardian. Yep. So not exaggerating, you've got 200 to 300 pages of just data there. Like you can't give that to someone. You can't give them 2 pages, it's too much. So what we do, what I did when I go through this for the PUA analysis overview is take that data, put it onto Excel, break it down, and just say, okay, here's exactly what I need, discard the rest. Here's exactly how the PUA fee works. I pay in $10,000 year one. With the old legacy product, I have 95%. 10,000, I've got 9,500 in PUAs. With a new product, I've got 92% because the PUA fee is higher. But then we'll look at the annual internal rate of return, isolating PUA dollars, then also the average. So putting all of that in Excel with each product for Mass and Guardian, and then creating a video, just like what I would go through in a meeting with you, explaining it line by line, walking through. So that might it took me about 15 hours for all the different products, just from the research to video shooting, but then it's done just like you said. So now when someone
over a 5-year period, it probably saved you 100 hours.
Correct. And think of it this way too. If you're leading your brokers and your brokers run into that question, you'll explain it to them, and then they'll say, okay, I don't really get it. Then they go trying to explain what they partially understood to a prospect. Prospect loses confidence in them and goes and talks to someone else. Right. So if you can say, and here's exactly what we do, when that question comes up, we provide the video content to our newer agents who are not experienced enough to answer those questions. They might start to understand it, but it's hard to articulate that properly. Provide the videos to them. They provide it to the prospect. The prospect says, I get it. Let's move on to the next steps. So you just saved hours and hours of work through the video asset, or however, it doesn't always have to be videos, however you're communicating that to the potential prospect.
Some kind of documentation of,
Correct. But, to kind of get back to the point, like how to thrive in the business, we're talking about knowledge and experience here. So technical aspects exist in this business and in every business, really. But how do you take in that knowledge? And then how do you properly communicate it is the big thing. And if we go back to your friend, the engineer, how do you communicate it effectively? And if you're doing things on your own, you have to practice, and you also have to be aware, or someone has to bring that awareness to you to know what you're saying here is going to go over most people's heads. Dumb it down more. Carve out a lot of stuff that you might feel like, oh, that's so important. Carve it out. Repackage it in a different method or a different way. This way, the communication is what it needs to be, but it's effective with reaching the proper audience. And that never ends. It took me years to do because I was the guy who'd always bomb presentations in front of people, like literally didn't know what to say, sat back down. I could tell you embarrassing stories, but that happened. So the only way to overcome that is to practice, which is a big time investment. So that's the first way. And then the second way is much easier if you're saying, okay, I like digging into this like your friend, and you're saying to him, hey, this isn't for you because you're going to have a hard time selling it.
Yeah. Well, I know this guy inside me out too.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
So use the Bill Gates example. Bill Gates, right? Brilliant guy when he started Microsoft, wasn't good at sales. He used to just dig into the programming. I can't really articulate what he did, but he was very, very good at programming computers. That was his thing. Selling, like, he wasn't good at it. He would sweat, get nervous, would start to stink. I heard stories like he wouldn't shower for days because he would just work, and he would bomb sales presentations. So what he did was bring in a sales guy
and smell bad.
and smell bad, right? But you've got someone who's not, I'm sure he is now, but who wasn't that good at sales, but a genius in another area, very effective, right? With all of the nitty gritty data. So what he did was bring in a sales guy, someone who's very good at communicating things. Maybe it's through short story selling, but Bill's looking at it and saying, here's the product that has to be delivered. I'm the one manufacturing this. So it's still my product. The integrity of it still exists. And I've got a salesperson I trust that I click with, that I can grow
and
together.
He's going to, the narrative of the story is going to be his design. Just the delivering of the story will be someone else.
Correct. So 2 routes there. One, if you want to do it on your own, you've got to invest the time, right? Personal development, practice, the communication and such. If that's a challenge, bring in a partner. Yeah. There you go.
What about systems and process? I think that's so important. Even if you're a one-man show, really clearly defined, because otherwise, and even on a smaller scale, I go through phases in my life and in my business life where I feel like I'm in a bad rut, where I'm just kind of waking up, responding to emails, making phone calls, everything's on the fly. I feel like I'm organized, but I'm really not. And you have to know how to pull yourself out of that and kind of say, what am I trying to accomplish here? And what's the best way to accomplish it? It's not typically fly by the seat of your pants and just try to work hard. Mm-hmm. That's not usually enough to really get it done.
Works in the beginning when you're starting things out and you've only got so many people to work with. And that type of person usually does well. Where they struggle is in phase 2. Like phase 1, $0 to $1 million in revenue or sales, a grinder, right? A workhorse that you're just going to put the pedal to the metal and knock out everything that comes in front of you. Yeah. But you're gaining a lot of experience that way. You get to a point when you've got so many people to work with, like, you can't do that. You got to be productive with your time. And here's the biggest struggle, going back to agent A versus agent B. Agent A has that grinder mentality. They're just going to fly and get everything done. Where they're going to feel like their head's underwater is when things get so overwhelming. They're going 10 million miles per hour, and there's more stuff at the end of the day than there was at the beginning of the day. You ever see Bruce Almighty with Jim Carrey when he's typing on the computer a mile a minute? And he's got more emails afterwards than when he started? That's how you feel sometimes. So in that particular case, you do need to get organized. Like what we've done is bring in more people and train them properly. A perfect example occurred this morning. We inherited a policyholder. They've got policies with MassMutual. They want to make some changes on their policy. An agent emails me, says, okay, what do we do in this particular case? I can respond in 2 ways. One, reach out to client relations, right? Our client relations department, and then they'll work with you and MassMutual on the changes, which they could, but this is a case where I looked at it and said, okay, they're not trained here. So you want to reach out to client relations, but here's exactly what you should ask for. One, if you can get the original illustration, that'll work. What's the original coverage? What's the current premium and PUA payments? If you know what they paid when they first started the policy, that helps. All of the information with respect to what they have right now exactly with their life insurance policy. And then what changes are they interested in? Do they want to reduce the face amount, reduce the MEC limit? Do they want to pay more toward PUAs? This way we know exactly what to do on that change paperwork, and the process is smooth. And then also when I put those bullet points there, they see here's the before and after, so they can take it and say, okay, here's what we need to do. They learn from that, and then as they work together as a team, it gets much, much easier.
Have you found certain groups or certain advisors have really flourished with you guys?
Yeah.
Or like a certain type?
That's a good question. So I think we do attract people who are more analytical than most. They like the numbers and the spreadsheets. But I have noticed we attract a good deal of people that just want to grow their business and they want accurate information, just accurate information because they're interested in serving their clients right. We focus on cash accumulation sales. Like that's what we do, how to maximize the cash value. I've noticed, particularly over the past 12 months, this has always been the case, but more so, people reaching out, newer agents saying, hey, I'm working with another group right now, and they say the best way to design policies is the way they do it, right? With a certain percentage going toward base premium and PUA. And I'm just looking at it, and I don't feel like I understand all of it. I want to know more, going back to your engineer buddy. But they're trying to understand things, and they're not getting answers. So they'll reach out to us. I'll have typically a call with them and just go through different ways to design policies, different companies, different products. And a lot of times they'll say, okay, how do we work together? And then we've got ILS, which helps with the coaching and training. But then they'll end up working with us in that respect. So to answer your question, people that want to understand how the product works, they want to do the best by their client, right? They want to set the policy up for the client, how they want it set up. And often we'll attract that type of person, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Consumer focused and growth focused.
Consumer. That's it. And a big thing too, what I've also noticed, the people we attract are people that are just consumer focused and they don't get caught up in a big competitive war. I don't want to start talking about competition today, but just in the insurance industry, whether you talk about agencies and brokers at the lower level or at the top, insurance companies, instead of describing their product, their services, how they can serve the client, often if a competitor comes up, it's like, well, here's a million reasons why they suck and you should just work with me.
Yeah.
I don't do that kind of stuff. So we try so hard not to do that and just focus on what the consumer wants and show all the options, like the Amazon model. And that's very, very effective. So people, agents and brokers that are attracted to that and are kind of repelled by the negativity and trash talking others, we do attract that type of individual too.
Yeah, I think it's hard sometimes. I mean, people are, as an advisor, I've never been an independent financial advisor. And I'm open and honest about that. I never take the approach with the brokers that I work with that I think the expectation from, like Mass Mutual management would be that I'm in a position where I'm supposed to be training them, or I'm supposed to be, I'm like their glorified sales manager. I mean, these guys do something that I've never done. Frankly, never really. It's not. It wasn't a path that I ever pursued or wanted to pursue. So I don't feel like I'm in a position where I can train them, but I have seen a lot of success and failure, and there is a particular part of the business that I can help with. I always feel for them when it's like there's so much information out there, and you've got a family and you're trying to make money, you're trying to get in front of clients, you're trying to find new clients, and there's wholesalers like me who are just constantly pressing for business and talking about how great their product is. And I think it's easy to get lost if you don't have real laser focus and real good systems and processes in place. Then you are getting pulled in a bunch of different directions, and it's pretty easy if you get lucky with some Allianz indexed annuity sales. The Allianz wholesaler starts to feel like your client, not your clients. And that's it. It's just you can get a little mixed up.
You can, right? And as a broker too, broker agent, the same thing. If an experienced wholesaler or someone that has been in the business for a long time says, hey, we've got this great new product, here's all the benefits, that's often the foundation where a broker says, okay, it's coming from them.
That's great.
They're a reputable source. So yeah, let's do it right away. And they
I
are.
mentioned Allianz, I'm not Allianz, great company, but it just something popped into my head. I was having a conversation with someone one day I had previously done a lot of business with, and they had kind of disappeared. And we were talking, and he was writing a lot of Allianz annuities, and we started talking about it. And we had a good friendly relationship. I started laughing. Said, "You sound like an Allianz wholesaler." And he's like, "Well, actually, there's a guy who took up temporary space in our building. He's Allianz annuity wholesaler, and we've been going out to lunch a lot." I said, "Well, yeah, I mean,
there you go.
You sound like you're reciting a sales pitch, which is fine, but it's easy to get swayed in different directions if you're the type of person who likes to be sold."
Yeah.
Which most people are. Yeah.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And if it's a sexy or exciting or, just kind of, there's something to the conversation and the talk that turns you on in some way, then like that's going to be on your mind, and that's going to pop up as like, I got to talk about this, or this is something I heard about that turned me on, or whatever. And it might not be the best thing for your business. So you really got to stay focused.
If your customer doesn't care, don't even bother, right?
Yeah.
don't even bother. Yeah. And you'll know within a couple minutes if they care or not. You can ask them too. Often I'll ask, because I know I've learned that a big problem I have is sometimes go into too much detail. So I'll ask when
do you care about this?
Right. I'll ask, or, with the question you just asked, I can go into detail on it. Do you really want the nitty gritty, like the detailed analysis? Do you want to know how the watch was built, or you just want the quick answer? And it's surprising. It's probably 60-40, with 60% saying, I want to know the ins and outs of it. I'm like, all right, no problem. But then 40%, one guy told me, he goes, nobody cares about that stuff. Just give me the 60-second overview. I'm like, hey, no problem.
Yeah. Here it is.
But everyone's different. So that's where you have to feel the audience, right? You have to really learn, call it the game, become a master of the game, and not just go through the motions.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. This has been great. We could talk about this all day. I think, at the end of the day, and what I've tried to do for anybody who's listening out there, I think you can tell from listening to Steve and I talk that, we have specific processes and systems in place, and we are both laser focused on our business, but the spirit of it all is being adaptable to your client, right? So Steve is very adaptable to his clients and has found a way to, apply his working process and system and work with a variety of different clients. And I'm the same way with financial advisors. So if you're an advisor or a broker out there and you want to learn more about cash value solutions, permanent life insurance, and how to enhance the cash value and really use that cash value to your advantage in a variety of different ways, I'm telling you that Steve and his team are the best in the business, and you should reach out to them. My role is Mass Mutual Brokerage Director. So if you are out there and you think you would benefit, or your clients would benefit from a relationship with Mass Mutual, whether it's whole life, disability, long-term care, fixed annuities, my shop is, annually a top 10 shop in the country. And, we're the best of the best, and we're proud of it. So feel free to reach out to either of us at any time. Steve, next week when we talk, we'll be that much closer to spring and summer, and, it's keep getting happier and happier.
Right on, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time as always, and I'll talk to you next week.
Enjoy the rest of the week.
All right. Enjoy.
See you.